This is Health Unabashed, broadcasting live on Healthcare Now Radio. Health Unabashed is where healthcare meets innovation, insight, and impact. We engage top industry minds to explore the future of health and wellness, from visionary thinking to sustainable models, policy reform to frontline delivery, and ultimately the real-world impact on public health. I'm Greg Masters, co-host and executive producer, alongside my partner in conversation, the ever-curious digital health aficionado, author, editor, global thought leader, and industry steward, Gil Bash. Together, we bring you the people, ideas, and movements reshaping healthcare, not with hype, but with purpose and persistence. On today's episode, Gil sits with John Nosta, founder of Nosta Lab, the globally recognized digital health think tank, and author of The Borrowed Mind, Reclaiming Human Thought in the Age of AI. In this conversation, John shares the story behind his provocative new book, a work that began as a celebration of artificial intelligence and evolved mid-chapter into something far more searching. We also examine why being a lifelong learner is no longer optional, why the circle of innovation always expands rather than contracts, and why John believes the most important question about AI is not what it does, but what it does to us. To learn more about John's work, visit nostalab.com and find The Borrowed Mind wherever books are sold, including Amazon. Now, with no further delay, Gil, the mic is yours.
Greg, thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you for everything you're doing. You're involved in many different ventures. You got a new radio show going on psychotropics, psychedelics, with Jim Tate, along with your show with Fred, and on Pop Health Week. Very, very exciting. I want to wish you the best on the new show. Obviously, you're pioneering an area of health that is growing. Now, this is a very special show because we're welcoming back for an unprecedented time John Nosta. And John is a friend. He's a mentor. He is I would say, a sparring partner at times.
A neighbor. A neighbor.
Right. But I think most importantly with John, who is really a dear friend, our conversations leave me, at least, hopefully him a little bit, thinking differently about the topics that we're very passionate about. John has just written a great book. I really highly recommend it. It's called The Borrowed Mind, Reclaiming Human Thought in the Age of AI. It is a book that I highly recommend. I'm going to speak to John about the book and his thinking process, because those of you who are following John's writings on Psychology Today over the past years will see that this book is a real shift from his earlier writings. And like many of us was enamored with the technology of what was called then artificial intelligence. Now, Greg, as you know, I would call it augmented intelligence or augmented implementation. And more people are actually using that term. But John started really at the place of his kind of fascination with the technology, and even believing to some extent that it would outsmart us or be smarter than us. And through that journey, he's come to a very unique, different place that I think has to be read, because it goes along consistently with what I've heard from other real luminaries of our field. Isaac Kahane of Harvard, who's the editor of the of certainly the New England Journal of Medicine AI edition. Ron Balassier, who's the chief technology and information officer at Clalit, which is one of the biggest systems using AI, and Hal Wolf, who's the CEO of HIMSS. They talk about leadership and governance. I think John is talking about something even more critical, which is the individual's self-awareness and mindfulness of how their brain is kind of converging with the technology. John, I got to welcome you back. I'm thrilled that you're here.
What did you call it? You didn't call it artificial intelligence. You called it what?
I was always calling it in my writings augmented intelligence or augmented implementation, because I don't think it is a replacement. I don't think it's based upon artificial information. I think AI is like the shadow of Peter Pan. When it's connected to Peter Pan, it moves along with Peter Pan and can assist Peter Pan's emotionally. But disconnected from humanity, I think the platform actually has value, but is subject to question.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
Well, here's I think so. You have your term, and I agree with it. I've been there. I've lived it.
It's a rare moment. People, listen to this. He agrees.
I agree with Gil. The thing is, I agree with Gil all the time. I just don't admit it because we have to find the heat. But so the word that I use, and the book is really based on this in many ways, is artificial intellect, or
I'll go with that.
Artificial intelligence. I don't think that AI is intelligent by the human standard, and that's the book. It was almost, we should call it the book that almost wasn't, because you and I were musing about how great AI is and dimensions of AI that I think exist today that are extraordinary. I think that the iterative intelligence that we achieve in AI is profound. I think the learner centricity that we find in AI that aligns with pharma's favorite phrase, patient centricity, is very true. It crafts a curriculum that puts the learner at the center. Is it always right? Of course not. Just like my doctor. My doctor isn't always right either. But I've come to the point where halfway through the book, or actually maybe 5/6 of the way through the book, I had a bit of a personal existential crisis. And that was that there's something wrong with the story. Something doesn't feel right. Something doesn't make sense. And that's where it shifted to me. And what the book really started to look at was not what AI does. That's a good part of the book. But what AI does to us. What does it do to our thinking when we lose human friction? When we lose or shorten the path from A to B? And I think that's a real concern, that sort of cognitive offloading. So the book shifted and kind of reworked it. And that's where The Borrowed Mind came out of the original title, which was The Cognitive Age, right? It's rah AI good, get out of my way kind of thing.
Yeah, I gotta read a sentence from the book. So, I mean, you kind of set me up for this, and for those who are with us right now, just so you know, John and I did not discuss this episode beforehand. Nope. So what he's just talking about,
because the spontaneity, right? The spontaneity.
I just want to read this one sentence. Mm-hmm. It's on page 71. It's the chapter that's called "The Lifelong Learner," and in the book, simple sentence. In today's world, being a lifelong learner is no longer an option, but a necessity. We're starting to think that AI can be our thinking for us. I have a question or I have a need. I sort of scope out the need with the right prompts. It punches out what I want, and lo and behold. And to your point, over time, because we're not struggling in our own heads to get it right or to write it in a way that's powerful, that friction is eliminated. And from that friction, that intellectual internal friction, we kind of hone our thinking, our imagination, our creativity. Once the friction is gone, it's a little bit like a zombie-like. It's almost like a technological lobotomy. And the concept of lifelong learner is not an option, it's a necessity. I wanted to ask you a little bit about that one standalone sentence in the book. You obviously gave it tribute by not having it as part of a paragraph.
Well, it's
own paragraph.
It's become a little bit of a punchline now in my speaking engagements. I don't mean to demean it. I get on the stage and I ask people, okay, what's an LLM? And they all know, large language model. And I said, then what's an LLL? And they look around confused, and I tell them it's a lifelong learner. And then I think the spark is ignited there. The light bulb goes on over their head, because in today's world, the market changes quickly. Steve Jobs, years ago, said you should change your career every 10 years. And certainly the marketplace changes so quickly that we need to constantly be educated and re-educated. Dare I say, a word that sometimes has a little bit of political baggage to it, but it's not just learning, it's unlearning. We have to unlearn and relearn because everything changes so quickly. So for me, there is no more powerful learning tool than an LLM used correctly. It used to be then an LLM period, but now it's used by an LLM comma correctly because obviously there's some problems with it. But to me, when I want to learn, look, the example in the book that I use is cooking a souffle. Now, I'm sure, Gil, like me, we've never cooked a souffle, right? Fair to say.
Fair to say.
If I had to, I don't think I'd be all that good at it. I open up Julia Child's Art of French Cooking, and we have it proudly displayed in our kitchen. Never use it because it's too darn hard, you know? And the first thing she says is, make a sachet in that high-pitched voice. I don't know what a sachet is. So I'm dead. I'm dead in the water. I can't go on any further. But if I told an LLM to use that cookbook and translate that recipe for me using automotive analogies, make it funny, and recognize that I've never been in a kitchen, what emerges? What happens there? That learner, that cook centricity, if you will, now comes out of nowhere. That knowledge never existed before. You know, Gene Brunwald's book up on my shelf is dusty, 25 years old. That's old news, but large language models brings a contemporary component to language, and it structures the language around me. It's almost like the strange physics dynamic where a particle can be a wave or it can be a particle at the same time. Right. There's an intrinsic duality, but when we look at it, it collapses into reality. Well, a large language model is almost cognitive potentiality, cognitive potential. But when we craft that prompt in a way, that knowledge is created in real time just for us. So, I mean, that really was the biggest part of the book early on, because I still think it's a valuable tool. We're seeing in schools now, no computer, no AI, no screen. You know, that's the new thing. But they're mistaking screen time for learning time. I think that's a big distinction. And we still don't know how to traverse that minefield yet.
Just tuning in, you're right on time for Health Unabashed on Healthcare Now Radio. We're live with John Nosta, founder of Nosta Lab, member of the Google Health Advisory Board and WHO's digital health roster of experts, and author of The Borrowed Mind, Reclaiming Human Thought in the Age of AI, exploring cognitive offloading, the coming cognitive age, and why lifelong learning may be the most important prescription in medicine today. Stay tuned. John Nosta has plenty of thought-provoking insights yet to share.
You know, the reality is that even years ago, when we looked at, Peter Drucker and some of the great, business advisors that were trying to sort of spark our business imagination at that point, what I was always struck by is those people who have 20 years of experience and those people who have 1 year of experience 20 times. And we see a lot of those. And, so my feeling is when people are talking about AI as a job threatener in almost every discipline, not just sort of standard like toll takers or people who are doing basic bookkeeping, but I really think that that sentence about being a lifelong learner as essential is a call to action that transcends AI. But I think AI has suddenly put society's feet to the fire, that if you want to be in the game you're in 5 years from now, guess what? It's not your employer's responsibility to keep you sharp. It is your responsibility to be a reader, to engage people, to write to people, to struggle with things. I know many people feel threatened about AI as a technology tool, as a displacer, as a disruptor. All it's done is it hasn't done anything that any other innovation has done to society. It's just kind of turned the dial up on speed.
Right? Hold that thought, because there are two essential truths to innovation and technology. One is that there are always unintended consequences. With the internet, it was going to be the great democratizer, the democratization of information and connect us all. It's fragmented society and make our engagement more performative than true. The other thing that I find very, very interesting is that innovation, and particularly technology, has never made the circle smaller. This is what we see with AI, that the criteria for designing a logo is being chopped into smaller and smaller pieces, and the designer has less. I don't believe that's the case. I think that the circle of innovation is expanding. The early use of photography didn't make portraiture go away. It expanded the domain. It created an industry that what's his name, Brady, the Civil War photographer, Matthew Brady would have never even thought of, right? It's called the selfie. Similarly, chess. I mean, a few years ago, AI beat the best chess players in the world, Deep Blue, IBM's computer. What happened to chess? It's never been bigger than it is today. So I think there's something there about the expanding circle of innovation and finding new opportunities. But again, it's going to be up to us to stay cognitively aware. It's not a passive dynamic. We've got to stay in the game, as you say.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you were the first person, to the best of my knowledge, that talked about the cognitive age. That was when I saw you make the shift. That you were totally in love with the technology as being the dominant force of society.
Still am.
Well, it is a dominant enabler of society. Like the wheel allowed us to sort of transverse, large territory by having wheelbarrow. Suddenly, we could take the heavy load, dump it in the wheelbarrow.
But here's where it's different. Gutenberg unlocked words, and he made words portable. But the interesting thing, he created something for which there was no market. So the marketers who are listening have to understand that. He created a book where the world was illiterate. So I find that to be just interesting as sort of a sidebar discussion. But he unlocked words. Then Google and the internet came along. What did they do? They unlocked facts in a very cold transactional way. But what we're seeing now with artificial intelligence is that they are unlocking thought. And it's not transactional, it's iterative. And that's where I'm even bothered by saying AI as a tool. People say, oh, it's a tool, it's how you use it. Well, I'm not so sure. I can take a hammer and put it down and walk away. But can I unthink a thought that I shared with a large language model? That's why unlocking thought is opening the door to the cognitive age. It's not the industrial revolution. It's not even the digital revolution anymore. It really is cognitive because AI is facilitating our capacity to think. It's also offloading it where humans decide not to think. That's our choice. And that's a precarious position to be in.
Yeah, it's a dangerous situation. Historically, of course, if we look at amazing counselors, you talked about the Gutenberg and the Bible, of course, but people hungered for knowledge. Now I wonder if we're feeling nauseous about knowledge in a way, which is, gee, rather than my hunger for knowledge and my curiosity, I won't prepare for this meeting. I won't prepare for that presentation. I'll turn it over to the large language model. I'll put it in there and I'll say, and give me a slide presentation, please. And so the danger I always find is the loss of original thought.
No, I think you're hedging. I think AI contribute extraordinarily to original thought. AI can pull together nuclear physics and cooking a souffle together in a unique way. Again, right. That's facilitated by me, right?
Right. That's certainly creative. Whether it's relevant, that's another issue altogether.
But again, when IBM looked at protein folding and won the Nobel Prize, they created all sorts of protein folding dynamics. It was up to the human mind to pick out the ones that were right. There's a bumper sticker that says, happiness is not a destination, it's a journey. And we're defaulting what makes us truly human. It's not the endpoint, right? It's the path. It's the path of vulnerability. It's the path of disruption. It's the path of controversy that takes us into this domain called human. So I agree with you at that point. I think that the sadness is where we don't recognize where the fun is because we're going to that end so quickly. And I think we're going to realize that. I think there's going to be some changes. In fact, I think it's happening now. People are revolting against AI in a strange way. You actually taught me this. You said that you've seen people have adverse reactions to AI the way some people have adverse drug reactions. that it becomes almost, it's wrong.
I certainly don't think AI is wrong. I applaud AI. I use AI. I'll give you an example in the business that I'm in, where a lot of big agencies are talking about AI. And certainly the organization I'm part of has developed tools that provide insight or support human judgment or counsel. But I often find, and look, you were chief creative officer of a large medical advertising agency for some years. I ultimately think it's the human dynamic and decision-making power that is essential. AI can certainly be an assistant.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I think here's the flaw. Here's the problem. Here's what I struggle with. Okay. We're putting AI and human cognition on the same axis. We're saying that, well, let's have AI do an IQ test and it comes out to 147, or we give it these college tests and they say, oh, it beat the PhD, right? That's putting AI on the same axis of human cognition. I don't think they live on the same axis. I think that they are actually orthogonal. They are at right angles to one another in ways that are very, very difficult to understand. Is AI smarter in a computational way? Without a doubt. But does AI have the lived experience of humanity? No, it doesn't. But you just can't mush them together. They're different.
That's an interesting concept. Here's what I'll say. AI is only smarter because it has accessed human intelligence and we'll say this has complete memory retention. So when human knowledge was like medicine we knew less about medicine. Obviously, there were brilliant people who had incredible retention powers, and they were almost as brilliant as the depository of textbooks. Wow. The problem is that human knowledge has become so expansive that it has exceeded the human capacity to remember it all. So AI serves as sort of the supercomputer pattern recognition tool that can draw from the depository of curated.
Yeah, but this is why AI is anti-intelligence to me. I think that thinking about AI in the context of intelligence is wrong. Think of it in terms of its computational capacity. But AI doesn't see the world the way we do. We see an apple in 3 dimensions with 20 linguistic associations: height, length, width, and we mention Apple computer, an apple a day, the apple in the Garden of Eden, whatever it may be. That's the way humans see an apple. AI sees an apple in a hyperdimensional reality that exists in 12,288 dimensions. It's freakishly different. It's different. And that apple in that dimensional reality is subject to profound computational capabilities that don't even align with human computation. It's different. In fact, it's no longer 12,280. It's about 25,000. We struggle with 5 dimensions. It's called a terasac or a hypercube. That gets us nervous. We get to string theory, and that exists in 11 dimensions. And people say, that's beyond human comprehension, which it is. LLMs live in a different computational reality that does not have any basis in comparison with humans. They're functionally different. They're aliens, and that's where I kind of push on this a little bit. And until we start looking at them differently, now here's the key takeaway. Let's try to ground this into something that makes sense, because I know I'm talking in like statistical mumbo jumbo. We have 2 eyes. The reason we have 2 eyes is because we have parallax view. When we close one eye, we lose depth perception. The value of 2 perspectives is extraordinary. It gives us depth perception. What about the value of a vast computational perspective aligned perpendicular with human cognition? It gives us parallax cognition. I think that's where it lives.
I'm with you on that.
Right.
I'm with you.
And people try to make,
and that's why, John, I'll summarize it when I always say augmented intelligence. It doesn't mean it's separate from our intelligence. It augments.
No, I'll push on that. I don't think it has anything to do with intelligence. It's not intelligent. It's a computational
anti-intelligent. You call it
anti-intelligent. Absolutely.
The reason in the seconds we have left that I'll
we agree. We largely agree.
I'll take the steering wheel.
But here's the thing, real quick.
It adds to our insight. It adds to our insight. Now I have to say, since we only have a few seconds left, if you're going to buy one book, this month or in the next few months, buy The Borrowed Intelligence.
No, I'm going to buy this one.
If you have two books to buy Healing the Sick Care System, Why People Matter.
Well, that's a book. That's a book with heart. That has passion. My book is kind of chest-pounding bravado.
Oh, come on. I don't want our last seconds to be. I think both books are very unique and special, very different, very important books.
They are. I'm
thrilled. I just have to acknowledge you that your encouragement to me to write Healing the Sick Care System brought it to life. Without you, John, I don't know if there would have been a book like that. And I'd like to believe a little bit of our conversations contributed in some way to the Borrowed Minds. John, thank you.
Undoubtedly, Gil.
Thank you for getting 5 times on Health Unabashed. Your bathrobe with the 5 emblem on it will be heading your way someday in the AI future.
I'll be looking forward to it. Hey, I'm going to wear it on the 6th episode. That's what I'll do.
There you go.
You guys are in trouble.
You got
All
it.
right.
Greg, thank you. John, we're indebted.
Thank you.
And that, dear listeners, wraps another thought-provoking conversation here on Health Unabashed. A heartfelt thank you to our global audience for joining us, and to our guest, John Nosta, for his candor, intellectual courage, and his willingness to challenge the very enthusiasm that first made him a champion of this technology. John reminds us that innovation is not just something that happens to us, it is something that we must actively, consciously, and continuously shape. His work asks us to remain the authors of our own minds, even as the tools around us grow more powerful by day. In an era of borrowed thinking, he makes the case for something irreplaceable, original human thought. Health Unabashed streams live on Healthcare Now Radio Monday through Friday at 10:30 a.m., 6:30 p.m., and 2:30 a.m. Eastern. That's 7:30 a.m., 3:30 p.m., and 11:30 p.m. Pacific. Want to stay connected? Follow Gil at Gil_Bash, and that's BASHE, and me, Greg Masters, MPH, on Twitter, and that's Greg with 2 G's. Tag your insights and feedback using the hashtag HealthUnabashed. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep raising your voice with no apologies.